The Fedwire Fund Service Assessment of Compliance with the Core Principles for Systemically Important Payment Systems. Revised July 2014. Fund Service Assessment of Compliance with the Core Principles for Systemically Important Payment Systems. Revised July 2014. Table of Contents. List of 2014 revisions 4. Executive Summary 5. 0 General Background 70.1 Brief History 70.2 Operations 80.3 Fedwire Use 10. 1 Core Principle I. Legal Basis 11.1.0 Assessment of Compliance 11.1.1 General Statutes and Regulations 11.1.1.1 Federal Reserve Act 11.1.1.2 Federal Reserve Regulation J 11.1.2 Governing Agreements 13.1.3 Other Applicable Laws 13. 2 Core Principle 2. Understanding Financial Risks 15.2.0 Assessment of Compliance 15.2.1 Disclosure of Rules and Procedures 15.2.2 Financial Risks in Fedwire 15.2.3 Federal Reserve Policy on Payment System Risk 16.2.4 Operating Circulars 6 Funds Transfers through Fedwire 16.2.5 Notification of Operating Hour Extensions and Operational Outages 17. 3 Core Principle 3. Management of Financial Risks 18.3.0 Assessment of Compliance 18.3.1 Credit Risk 18.3.1.1 Credit Risk to Participants 18.3.1.2 Credit Risk to the Central Bank 18.3.2 Liquidity Risk 18.3.2.1 Liquidity Risk to Participants 18.3.2.2 Liquidity Risk to the Central Bank 19.3.3 Managing Credit and Liquidity Risks 19.3.3.1 Policies and Procedures for Managing Credit and Liquidity Risks 19.3.3.2 Tools for Managing Credit and Liquidity Risks 21. 4 Core Principle IV. Prompt Final Settlement 23.4.0 Assessment of Compliance 23.4.1 Final and Irrevocable Settlement 23.4.2 Rejected Transfers and Error Handling 23.4.3 Bankruptcy 23. 5 Core Principle V. Settlement in Multilateral Net Systems 24. 2. 6 Core Principle V. Settlement Assets 25.6.0 Assessment of Compliance 25. 7 Core Principle 7. Security and Operational Reliability 26.7.0 Assessment of Compliance 26.7.1 Security Policy and Controls 26.7.2 Operational Reliability 26.7.3 Business Continuity 27. 8 Core Principle 8. Efficiency 28.8.0 Assessment of Compliance 28.8.1 Economic Benefits 28.8.2 Pricing Policy and Competition 28.8.3 Cost Efficiency Measures 29.8.4 Service Practicality 29.8.5 User Consultations 38.6 Changes and Reforms in Process 31. 9 Core Principle X. Access Criteria 32.9.0 Assessment of Compliance 32.9.1 Access to Fedwire 32.9.2 Access to an account at the Federal Reserve 32.9.3 Termination of Access 32. 10 Core Principle X. Governance 33.10.0 Assessment of Compliance 33.10.1 Policy and Decision-Making Structure 33.10.1.1 Board of Governors 33.10.1.2 Federal Reserve Banks 34.10.1.3 Federal Reserve Bank Committees 35.10.2 Supervision and Audit 36.10.2.1 Board Supervision 36.10.2.2 External Audit 36.10.2.3 Federal Reserve Bank Internal Audit 36.10.3 Consultation Process 37. 11 Conclusion 38.11.0 Assessment of Compliance 38. 3. Executive Summary. The international financial community has worked over time on initiatives to strengthen the global financial infrastructure. As one of these initiatives, the Committee on Payment and Settlement Systems (CPSS) of the central banks of the Group of 10 countries developed the Core Principles for Systemically Important Payment Systems (Core Principles) to serve as guidelines for the design and operation of safe and efficient systemically important payment systems worldwide. 1. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. The Board has incorporated these principles into the Federal Reserve Policy on Payment System Risk (PSR) policy. 2. This assessment has been conducted pursuant to Part 1 of the PSR policy. Effective financial systems depend on safe and efficient payment systems, particularly systemically important payment systems. Systemically important payment systems can transmit economic shocks across markets and international borders. Poorly designed or operated payment systems can exacerbate economic disturbances, while well-managed systems help minimize these disturbances. As a real-time gross settlement (RTGS) system for the United States and the US dollar, the Federal Reserve Bank's Fedwire Funds Service plays a critical role in the implementation of United States monetary policy through the settlement of domestic money market transactions. 3. The Fedwire Funds Service is also used for time-critical payments such as the settlement of commercial payments and financial market transactions, and for the funding of other systemically important financial market infrastructures. The Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States and includes the board and the 12 regional reserve banks. The Federal Reserve seeks to foster the safety, efficiency, and accessibility of the Fedwire Funds Service and other payment systems in the United States. As a systemically important payment system, the Fedwire Funds Service should meet or exceed the international standards for such systems. Furthermore, the Federal Reserve recognizes that critical reserve bank payment and settlement. 1. Committee on Payment and Settlement Systems, Core Principles for Systemically Important Payment Systems, Bank for International Settlements, January 2001. The core principles are available at www.bis.org. Systemic importance is defined in paragraph 3.0.2. In April 2012, CPSS and the Technical Committee of the International Organization of Securities Commissions (IOSCO) published the Principles for Financial Market Infrastructures, PFMIs, which updated, harmonized, strengthened, and replaced the existing CPSS and IOSCO risk management standards, including the core principles with respect to payment systems. 2. In January 2014, the board proposed revisions to Part 1 of its PSR policy in light of the international risk management standards in the PFMIs. Once the PFMIs are adopted into board PSR policy, the Fedwire Funds Service will be expected to comply with those standards applicable to central bank-operated payment systems. 3. Fedwire is a registered service mark of the Federal Reserve Banks. 5. General background. The Fedwire Funds Service is an RTGS system owned and operated by the reserve banks that enables participants to make final payments in central bank money. The Fedwire Funds Service consists of a set of computer applications that route and settle payment orders. 5. In addition to settling payment orders, the Fedwire Funds Service and related applications review payment orders for syntax errors, query and update account balances, and notify participants of related credits and debits to their accounts. The Fedwire Funds Service is supported by a national communications network. An institution that maintains an account with a reserve bank generally can become a participant of the Fedwire Funds Service. Participants use the Fedwire Funds Service to instruct a reserve bank to debit funds from the participant's own reserve bank account and credit the reserve bank account of another participant. 6. The Fedwire Funds Service processes and settles payment orders individually throughout the operating day. Payment to the receiving participant over the Fedwire Funds Service is final and irrevocable when the amount of the payment order is credited to the receiving participant's account or when the payment order is sent to the receiving participant, whichever is earlier. Participants of the Fedwire Funds Service send payment orders to a reserve bank online, by initiating an electronic message, or offline, via telephone. Payment orders must be in the proper syntax and meet the relevant security controls. An institution sending payment orders to a reserve bank is required to have sufficient funds, either in the form of account balances or overdraft capacity, or a payment order may be rejected. 0.1 Brief history. The reserve banks developed the Fedwire Funds Service to improve the safety and efficiency of the interbank settlement process. 7. In the early 1900s, settlement of interbank payment obligations often involved the physical delivery of cash or gold to counterparties, which was both risky and costly. To mitigate these risks, in 1918, the reserve banks introduced a dedicated funds transfer network featuring a Morse code system that connected the 12 reserve banks, the board, and the United States Department of the Treasury. The key feature of this arrangement was the ability to transfer balances held at the reserve banks using a secure communications network. This feature remains the foundation of Fedwire Fund Service operations. 5. The definition of a payment order is in Subpart B of the Board's Regulation J, 12 CFR Section 210. The Code of Federal Regulations is available at www.gpoaccess.gov/cfr/index.html. 6. Except as provided in Operating Circular 1, an institution may maintain only a single master account with only the reserve bank in whose district the institution is located. This account contains all balances, including excess balances and balances maintained to satisfy reserve balance requirements. For additional information on reserve requirements and reserve balances requirements, see the Reserve Maintenance Manual available at www.federalreserve.gov/monetary-policy/rmm/reserve-maintenance-manual.pdf. 7. For additional information on the history of the Fedwire Funds Service, see Fedwire. The Federal Reserve Wire Transfer Service, Federal Reserve Bank of New York, March 1995, and Creating an Integrated Payment System, The Evolution of Fedwire, Adam Gilbert, Dara Hunt, and Kenneth C. Winch, Federal Reserve Bank of New York Economic Policy Review, July 1997, available at www.newyorkfed.org/research/epr/97v03n2/9707 gilb html. 7. As communications technology improved, the reserve banks increased levels of security and automation for the Fedwire Funds Service. From the 1920s to the 1960s, the Fedwire Funds Service migrated from leased-line public telegraph circuits to telex to computer operations and proprietary telecommunications networks. These operations were organized and executed by the 12 reserve banks on a decentralized basis. This organization matched the localized structure of the domestic banking system at the time and allowed each reserve bank to serve the specific needs of the institutions in its Federal Reserve district. During the 1980s, consistency of services across districts became increasingly important as interstate banking emerged in the United States. More bank holding companies owned depository institutions in multiple districts and sought greater standardization of reserve bank services. The reserve banks addressed this demand by deploying standard software for the Fedwire Funds Service in each reserve bank. In the 1990s, the reserve banks consolidated most mainframe computer operations, centralized certain payment applications, and consolidated Fedwire management at specific reserve banks. Section 10 of this assessment provides greater detail on the governance structure of the Fedwire Funds Service. More recently, the reserve banks have taken advantage of the flexibility and efficiency that Internet Protocol (IP) and distributed processing technologies offer. These technologies have enhanced the functionality and operational reliability of the Fedwire Funds Service and other reserve bank services. Although many aspects of Fedwire Funds Service management have been centralized, certain reserve banks remain responsible for limited operational processes such as updating account profiles. In addition, each individual reserve bank still maintains an account for and a relationship with the institutions in its district. 0.2 Operations. Participating institutions. An institution that maintains an account at a reserve bank is eligible to be a Fedwire Funds Service participant. Such institutions include Federal Reserve member banks, non-member depository institutions, and certain other institutions, such as U.S. branches and agencies of foreign banks. 8. The Board's Regulation J, Subpart B, which incorporates Article 4A of the Uniform Commercial Code, and Operating Circular 6 funds transfers through Fedwire OC6 issued in accordance with Regulation J, govern Fedwire funds. 8. For purposes of this assessment, depository institution has the meaning set forth in Section 19 of the Federal Reserve Act, 12 U.S.C. Section 461(b)(1)(a), but also includes U.S. branches and agencies of foreign banks and edge and agreement corporations unless the context indicates otherwise. The reserve banks also provide services for other organizations, such as the United States Treasury, government-sponsored enterprises (GSEs), and foreign central banks. Services provided to these organizations are beyond the scope of this assessment. Federal statutes are available at http://www.gpoaccess.gov/uscode/. 8. Service Funds Transfers. Point 9. Under Regulation J and OC6, the reserve banks can impose conditions on an institution's use of the Fedwire funds service. In particular, OC6 requires each Fedwire participant to enter into a security procedures agreement with its reserve bank. Access Solutions Fedwire Funds Service. Funds transfers can be initiated online or offline. Online transactions require no manual processing of payment orders by reserve bank staff. Participants that send and receive a large number of messages typically choose the Fedline Direct Access solution. The Fedline Direct Access solution involves direct computer-to-computer communication and allows participants to customize internal systems, providing significant automation and greater levels of straight-through processing. Participants that send or receive lower message volumes typically use the Fedline Advantage Access solution, a web-based access solution that can be accessed via personal computers either over a private network connection or over the Internet using a virtual private network (VPN) connection. Participants that send or receive very few Fedwire funds service funds transfers sometimes elect to use the offline transaction process. Offline transactions are transmitted via telephone and require reserve bank staff to input the payment order. Operating hours. Fedwire funds service operating hours for each business day begin at 9 p.m. Eastern Time (ET) on the preceding calendar day and end at 6:30 p.m. ET on each business day, Monday through Friday, excluding designated holidays. For example, processing on a non-holiday Monday begins at 9 p.m. ET on Sunday night and ends at 6:30 p.m. ET Monday night. The deadline for third-party transfers, those initiated or received by a participant on behalf of a customer, is 6 p.m. ET. Offline transfers can be initiated between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. ET, 5:30 p.m. for third-party transfers. A complete time schedule and list of holidays is available in Appendix B of OC6. Guidelines pertaining to the extension of Fedwire funds service hours.